Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to continue on with this little Japanese mini-series that I'm filming for you while I'm here in Osaka once again over Christmas 2019. For this review then, we're going to return to a brewery who I first introduced you to a couple of months back, but I've been impressed with these guys when I've encountered them before, and it's a brewery that I've known about for quite a long time, but it's only quite recently that I've been able to get a hold of some of their beers in bottles and cans. So for this one then, we are going to return to Nagoya and we're having a look at another beer from Y Market Brewing. Now this one is called the Hysteria IPA and it comes in at 7.1% ABV. This is another beer that I picked up from liquor shop Asahiya in Taishibashi, Maichi, Osaka. My good friend Koji hangs on to a lot of beers for me, and he was telling me that this is one of their core range actually, and said that this is one that I should really have a go at because he really quite liked it, and he's never pointed me in the direction of a bad Japanese beer yet, so why not? So yeah, if you do find yourself in Osaka, make sure you check out Koji's shop. As always with the Japanese reviews, I'll put the link to his page in the description below and you can see all the new beers that he's getting. But definitely cool to return to this brewery. The last beer and the first review I did from them actually was the Hop Seduction, which was a New England's type pale ale, and it was pretty nice, I have to say, so I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. I'm not sure exactly what type of IPA it is, but Koji told me that it's a good beer, so we'll need to see how we get on, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Y Market Brewing before. No doubt I'll add some more in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Japanese beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Y Market Brewing. So Y Market Brewing, as I mentioned earlier, are based in Nagoya, kind of in the centre of Honshu Island in Japan, and they're part of the same parent company that owns Okadaya Liquors, which is run by Yasuhiro Yamamoto. So they started out with a small brewhouse in the Yanagibashi market, hence the name Y Market Brewing, and this was mainly composed of food and drink wholesale businesses, and these businesses supplied the restaurants and pubs and things like that around Nagoya City. So they hired Kachi Makoto as the head brewer, who had previously worked for Kisoji Beer in southern Nagano, and he really got into home brewing when he was living in Canada and involved in the craft beer scene in Montreal. There's a very good craft beer scene in Quebec these days, of course. But they went on to opened their first brew pub in March of 2014, and this is on the second floor of the brewery, and they started out with a 1,000 litre brewing system that Kachi designed himself. Over the last few years they've been gradually building up their market and brewing capacity, and also developing lots of new different beers. These guys, I would say, are one of the most prolific craft breweries in Japan. They're quite well known for IPAs these days, but they do have a go every so often at different styles. And I mean, if you keep an eye on Koji's page, he's got new beers from Y Market Brewing every sort of 2-3 weeks or something like that. So they are a very prolific brewery, and particularly so when you consider in Japan they like to kind of take a lot of time to develop recipes and stuff like this. Not with these guys, they're pretty solid and they just play around with lots of different things, which is very exciting. But according to Untappd, as of December 2019, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced in the region of 225 different types of beer. So like I say, one of the most prolific craft breweries in Japan. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Y Market Brewing for the moment. That was all the information I was able to find on these guys. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to see all the different types of beers that they do. Like I said, most of them tend to be like IPAs and pale ales and stuff like this, but you will get other things on occasion. In a few videos time, you will see me review a nice Weizenbock from these guys, which was released for Christmas. A very popular style in Japan at Christmas time, the Weizenbock. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So you'll notice that the artwork on this one, if you know this brewery, it is a little bit different. Most of the limited brew beers that they have just come in a plain silver can, and they've just got a little strip sticker down them. So like I said, this is one of the beers that's intended as a core range beer, so that's why the artwork is a little bit different. There at the top you can see the Hysteria IPA, and you know, the artwork is pretty sort of modernist and things like that. It just tells you a little bit. No, it's 7%. Sorry, I told you lies. It said on Untappd that this beer was at 7.1%, and it just tells you this is one of their kind of core range IPAs and stuff like that. So yeah, it should be a really nice beer. The details that I got on this one from the website, it says that this one is hopped with Simcoe, Citra, Chinook, Motueka and Mosaic. So Simcoe, we know, is a lovely big kind of passion fruity hop. Citra is that sort of mangoey and quite complex tropical thing. Motueka is a sort of limey hop that you'll find from New Zealand, and you've also got Mosaic in there, which as we know is a really nice sort of orangey tangerine hop. So 1 New Zealand hop in here, 3 American ones, and we're kind of familiar with all of these different ones. So yeah, without further ado, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. I think this one is a 350 milliliter can. That tends to be the standard measurement for cans in Japan, actually. So let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting then. I'm really curious to see how this beer turns out. So let's get it out and into the glass. And like I said at the start of the video, I'm not sure exactly what kind of IPA this one is going to be. I don't know whether it will be a more West Coasty one or whether it'll be a New England one. On appearance, it actually looks as if it's a little bit more kind of West Coasty. It's got a little degree of haze to it, but in terms of colour, it's a lot more akin to what you would expect of a West Coast, but you know, it could actually be a little bit of a hybrid. So if I hold this beer up to the light, it's actually a kind of medium amber colour. There's a solid finger of a frothy, I would say, slightly cream coloured head on this one. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. The carbonation is actually a little bit active in this one. There's 1 or 2 little bits of sediment just kind of floating around there. But you know, the Japanese, they're pretty good when it comes to transporting their beer around. So I've said to you before, craft beer in Japan is a very regional product, but the slightly better known breweries actually are very good at distributing their beer and making sure that it's conditioned properly. They're used to this, of course, because of the sake market, and some of the sakes are unpasteurised and things like this. But yeah, nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this beer. If I stick my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a degree of transparency to this one, but it is a little bit hazy. So it's got a bit of the haze you would expect of a New England, but it's got more of the colour that you would expect of a kind of West Coast IPA. If we knew the malts that were in this one, we'd be able to tell whether it was a West Coast. I don't think on the back it says anything, it just says IPA. It doesn't say what type of IPA it is exactly, so we'll talk about that when we actually taste it. But a nice looking beer, so let's take a closer look at that aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Oh, that's really nice actually. To me it's the Motueka that's jumping out of this one, or Motueka, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but that big limey note from the Motueka is really jumping out at this one for me. You know, Citra can give you some nice lemon and limey notes, and you're getting, I'm guessing that will be amplifying the lime a little bit, but for me it's a big limey note that jumps out of this one, and the tropical fruit kind of sits underneath it, so there is a little bit of a mango to this one, but to me this is a very citrusy smelling IPA actually. A little bit of a kind of you know, it's definitely got a little bit of a kind of mango underline to it, but the lemon and limes in this beer, that's what really jumps out of this one for me. If you take at the front of the nose, you'll get a little bit of that orange from the Mosaic. It's got a sort of tangerine orange, so that again, that'll be amplifying the citrusy side of things as opposed to the tropical side of things. But yeah, the more you smell of this one, the more your nose kind of, it almost saturates a little bit and you start to get more of these kind of tropical aromas out of it. But to me, this is quite a citrusy, zesty smelling IPA. Limes, mainly, a little bit of lemon in there, some nice juicy tangerines. You can get a little bit of mango in there, and perhaps at the back of the nose there's a wee bit of a kind of passion fruity note. The Chinook can give you a big bit of a kind of grapefruity quality as well, but I don't get too much of that in this beer. This one's a bit more zesty and citrusy, but you've also got just a little bit of a juicy tropical fruit lying underneath this one. I'm guessing that Chinook will have been used as the bittering hop in this one to give you a bit of a hoppy bitterness actually. because it's very good for that. It gives you a lot of lovely pine resins and a bit of dark grapefruit actually, so it's a very good bittering hop. Chinook, along Columbus is the other favourite for bittering hops. But yeah, on the green side of this beer then, on the green side of the hops, for me, it's actually, you can get a little bit of a piney quality to it, but really, I think it's mainly, it's quite floral at the same time. The pine resin doesn't jump out overly at you, and all four of the other hops in this will give you some nice sort of floral elements. But there's a nice kind of grassiness to this one as well. It's actually not that the green side of the hops aren't leaning one way or the other. They do seem quite well balanced. Nice grassy notes, and also a little bit of a kind of big kind of floral aromaticity and some piney resins too. But I mean, overall, it's quite a nice, it's a really nice smelling beer on the hoppy side of things. On the malty side, it's interesting because you can pick up a little bit of breadiness in there, and to me there's some elements that really scream out. I think this one, the malt base is leaning more towards a West Coast type malt base, and you can definitely pick out a little bit of a nice kind of bready quality to it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of American two-row in this one. There's lots of different types of two-row, but exactly what one I couldn't tell you. But there is something about this that really makes me think there might be American two-row, and I think there's some German malt in this too, because the breadiness that you get as the base of this beer does come across as quite, you know, German-like, almost like the Weirmann malts. So a little bit of a kind of bready note, but the biscuity and slightly, there's a bit of a caramelly quality to this one as well. Those are what are the sweeter side of things make me think American malts. The breadier side of it makes me think German. It might be a combination of the two actually. So yeah, a nice little bit of a biscuity note, some sweeter caramel in there as well, and a nice kind of bready base to the beer as well. So yeah, kind of everything that you would want from a nice IPA, to be honest with you. I think this one leans more towards the West Coast side of things. The sweetness, the kind of caramelly and biscuity notes really make me think West Coast, and the kind of presence, the sort of floral piney resin presence to this beer really makes me think a little bit more West Coast as well. So yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one. A lovely zesty citrusy IPA, this one, but let's have a taste of this then and see how we get on. This one is the Hysteria IPA, coming in at 7% ABV from Y Market Brewing in Nagoya here in Japan. Let's get stuck into this one. Thank you again to Koji for keeping this beer aside for me. Slàinte, skål, kanpai. Oh yeah, right. That's really pretty nice. I mean, this is a very kind of straight up West Coast IPA. It's a little bit kind of old school, this one. It takes me back a few years. I've said this about a few of the West Coast IPAs that I've had recently, that they, you know, I haven't drunk these beers, or drank, whatever English, I haven't had this style of beer quite regularly in a long time, so whenever I try them, I do tend to think, oh, this is, you know, 2015, 2016. It's a nice kind of nostalgia kick, and this is a proper old school West Coast IPA for me. This is a really well done beer. Thumbs up to Y Market Brewing for this one. I like this. So yeah, let's try and break the flavour of this one down a little bit then. So malt base first. Straight away you're going to get that nice kind of pale malty quality. That blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, you start to get a bit of this kind of thicker bready notes in there. You can feel the malt base in this beer just thicken up the further that you move into the aftertaste. And if you go to the very centre of your palate, you'll get a little bit of a kind of sweet caramel there. And as you move out from the centre of the palate, there's a little bit of a kind of biscuity sweetness as well, which is kind of nice. So yeah, the malt base in this one really is pretty solid and pretty old school. I mean, it's not really got any kind of woody or nutty undertones or anything to it. It's very kind of straight up, and that's what I like about it. I do, just going from the flavours in this and the way the sort of caramelly and biscuity notes come out, I think this is American malt that's been used in this one, American like two-row or something like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if there is a German base malt in this, like pale malt or something like that. you know, a lot of the beer knowledge that's in Japan has come from Germany, and there are some folk that have come from America, and I guess maybe Catchy that's brewing at Y Market is, you know, more familiar with the American malt, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of American Turo and stuff that's being used in here, but the malt base is very straight up and really nice, properly old school West Coast for me. So this is a pretty damn good beer actually to have as a West Coast, as a core range beer, I guess you could say. Yeah, I like that. The interesting thing about this one as well is, and we'll talk about it more with the mouthfeel, I've always said that Japanese craft beer and beer generally, the Japanese view beer is something to kind of clear the throat and be very drinkable. This is one of the kind of slightly thicker feeling Japanese beers that I've come across, and it's interesting because there is a craze in Europe at the moment of putting Pilsner malt in New England and West Coast IPAs to make them a bit more drinkable and sessionable and stuff. This one is definitely a bit thicker than the other IPAs and stuff that I've come across in Japan. Let's move on to the hoppy side of things though. So back corners of the palate, there is a little touch of earthiness there. That's one of the kind of complexities you can get from Mosaic, but as you come further forward along the sides of your tongue, you can feel that just smoothing out a little bit, and you get a little bit of a kind of piney resin and spicy floral aromatic note on the front kind of sides of your palate. You'll get that from the Chinook. The Chinook is a big sort of pine resiny hop, and then round the very front curve of the tongue it's just a little bit more kind of lighter and grassy, I would say. So yeah, this one, the green side of the hop, it leans a little bit towards the kind of piney resin side of things, which is good. Again, that makes it a little bit old school, but as I always say, behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And for me, this one, it mixes really quite nicely. If you go to the back of that oily part, you get a little bit of the darker kind of grapefruit, which will be the Chinook. You'll also get a little bit of it from the Citra, but as you move further forward from it, it becomes a little bit more juicy and passion fruity. Then it evolves to be a little bit more mango, and on the front of that part of your palate there, you start to get the kind of juicy tangerine oranges from the Mosaic as well. The Simcoe gives you the passion fruit, the Citra gives you the mango, and on the very kind of tip of your tongue, it's got a little bit of that kind of limey quality from the Motueka as well, actually, and it's nice how it makes that transition. So grapefruit, passion fruit, mango, tangerine oranges, and then a little bit more kind of limey. The further you go into the aftertaste, you'll feel the nice kind of caramelly, biscuity malts pushing their way out. The sweetness of the beer pushes its way back out again, but then you also get the nice oily qualities from the fruit as well. And to me, it's the orange that lingers into the aftertaste, along with a bit of the lime. The other fruits, I think, fade away a little bit, but it's the oranges and the limes, I think, that kind of linger there. So you get the oily character of the orange, but then the lime just gives you a little bit of that kind of citrusy zest. So I mean, in terms of IPAs, I think this one is really quite nicely balanced, and for me, because I've been really craving the West Coast IPAs recently. This is one that really ticks a lot of boxes for what I want from a beer at the moment. So yeah, a really solid core range beer, this one from Y Market Brewing. It's cool to see them doing a core range as well, because for a long time I know they have been like pretty prolific, which is good to an extent, but you do want a kind of mainstay in your range of beer, if you like. So this is a nice one, and I think this will be around for quite a long time. A really solid West Coast IPA for me, and hopefully this is one that can, you know, go abroad from Japan and tell the world a little bit about how the Japanese craft beer scene is. It's definitely a good beer to use for that purpose, of course. So for those of you watching abroad, hopefully this is a Japanese craft beer that you come across quite soon. Not many of the breweries are making it out of Japan at the moment, of course, but overall a nice smooth and sweet malt base and a nice little bit of hoppy bite and some juicy fruity qualities as well. In terms of the mouthfeel then, so as I mentioned earlier, this beer I think is a little bit thicker compared to other IPAs I've come across from Japan. This is a big sort of oily feel overall, I would say. So yeah, I'd say that it's a mid-bodied beer. but it's at the top end of mid-body. The carbonation is very smooth. The mouthfeel overall is really quite oily, I would say. In terms of IBUs, I think we're talking about, you know, 60 or 70 here, somewhere in that region. It's about 60 or 70 IBUs this one, and you especially notice it in the aftertaste. You get the piney resins and some of the floral qualities just kind of sitting there, which is quite nice. On the malty side of things, like I said, very, very smooth and a bit thicker underneath, but you've got a good level of sweetness in the middle of your palate as well, which I really quite like. And there's a lovely big oily and juicy fruity, more oily rather than juicy actually. I think a nice big oily fruitiness and some nice kind of zesty citrusy notes that linger there into the aftertaste as well. So overall, a really, really solid take on the West Coast IPA. One of the thicker beers as well that I've come across from Japan. Not quite as crisp as a number of other ones that you're going to come across, but a really nice, solid effort from Y Market Brewing. And as I say, this is a brewery that you definitely want to check out in Japan if you do find yourself over here. Always some interesting beers from these guys, and hopefully I can go to Nagoya at some point and you know, do a little on-site video for you. That would be a really nice thing to do. But yeah, definitely cool to return to these guys and to have one of their core range beers. You will see a few more of the kind of limited beers reviewed by me over the next couple of weeks and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for those videos, but if you get the chance, make sure you try the Hysteria IPA. This is a really nice take on the West Coast style. So let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Y Market Brewing as well. We will definitely return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future. I thank you again for watching. Make sure you check out my social media, but most importantly, make sure you check out Koji's shop, liquor shop Asahiya in Taishibashi, Machi-Osaka, and get a hold of some of these Y Market beers from Nagoya. So yeah, till the next time, slander just now, and I'll catch you guys soon. The Hysteria IPA from Y Market Brewing in Nagoya here in Japan. A lovely take on the West Coast IPA. Slanger, Skull, Kampai.